Draft week here on the Locked On Network. And if you're a Boston College fan, there's one name you're going to be watching for, Zay Flowers. Today, I'm going to tell you some of the places the prognosticators have him going. Is he going to end up at your team, with your team? You're going to want to hear.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to Draft Week coverage here on Locked On BC. And there's one man we want to talk the most about, and that's probably the only guy on BC that's going to get drafted, and that is wide receiver Zay Flowers. Now, if you've been following along, Flowers, who set all sorts of records in the his final season with BC and basically his career, is setting himself up a first-round draft pick, the first ever Boston College wide receiver drafted, and the first to ever go in the first round. Now, as we watch, there are plenty of teams that would love to have Zay Flowers. But as Mitch Wolf has said on our podcast, there's some teams that don't have the right allocation of where he's going to land. Like, you're not going to have him going to a team that's drafting like to the Carolina Panthers. They're going to go for a quarterback, right? There's other teams that don't need him or need other things more. I think the Patriots are a perfect example of that. And there are great fits. And yeah, we here at Locked On, we have some thoughts on who they're going to be. And later this week, we'll have Mitch Wolf join us, and he's going to give us his thoughts. He's going to be on Wednesday. You're going to get a chance, or Thursday before the draft. And then on the night of the draft, we're going to go live to talk about Zay's new home. Now, I wanted to go through the mocks. Mock drafts are a crazy beast, right? It's a bunch of writers who are just kind of guessing at what's going to happen in the draft. And there's guys out there that are good at this stuff. I mean, there's guys that can figure things out. As a Patriots fan, there's guys that have no clue. And if you can figure out what Bill Belichick is going to do, good, you've got another future as a fortune teller, if that's the case. But I wanted to go around and look at what these mock drafts are saying, what they're thinking about where Zay could land. So I picked out about 8 of them, and I'm going to go through each one and kind of give you a lowdown. So let's start with the NFL Network. NFL had Eric Edholm give his draft, and he has Zay going number, I just lost it. Where'd he go? 18 to the Chiefs. All right, he's got a projected trade here. Sometimes trades happen, sometimes they don't. And here's what he said about Zay. And with the KC draft crowd goes crazy, he says. The Chiefs might need to leapfrog a number of wide receiver hungry teams to land Flowers. If he's in 18 overall, could feel high for Flowers, but this is right where he ranked in my top 100 prospect list. And GM Brett Veach has picks to burn. Flowers would be a clear upgrade to Mecole Hardman. And from the Lions' perspective, trading down with Bijan Robinson still on the board would be an interesting litmus test for their hit. We said this on last week's podcast. Zay Flowers to the Chiefs is unfair. Unfair, right? Like, you get him out there with Patrick Mahomes, my gosh, he's going to have a special season. So that's where one team. Interesting trade, though, right? Like, you wouldn't expect the Chiefs to move up to get Zay, but it makes a lot of sense because they've got a lot going on that team. But you get a special player like Zay out there, you go out there and you make the move, especially if you have the draft capital to do it. So that was an interesting one, I thought. Now, let's go to ESPN. ESPN's insane. Let's just go with that to start this off. They did a 7-round mock draft. 7 freaking rounds of just guessing. That's like, what is it, 300 and something picks? How is that going to ever be accurate, right? But they're going to have fun with it. That's part of the fun of this stuff, right? Where do they have Zay going? They have him going to a team that is very popular, I've seen, in terms of mock drafts, and that's the Baltimore Ravens in 22. Now, Baltimore just Beckham Jr. And to me, when they signed Odell, it was kind of a sign to Lamar Jackson, like, hey, we're taking this seriously. Now you surround Lamar with Odell Beckham Jr. and you give him Zay Flowers. I think that trade demand is going to go away pretty quickly because now you've got some weapons around you. You're not asked to be everything. I mean, Baltimore, it's been years since they've had a legit, was it? I mean, I don't know if you want to consider Steve Smith, but it's been a while since they've had a legitimate number one wide receiver. If you bring in Zay, you have two really good wide receivers. And I know they've got a couple guys on there that would fit in nicely at 3 and 4. So that makes a lot of sense too. So that's at 22 to the Ravens. Now, the Daily News had Pat Leonard give his top 20, his mock draft as well. And I hope you guys are enjoying going through these as much as I am, because this one surprised me. It was number 29, and that is to the New Orleans Saints. I don't know if this is a trade. I'm sorry, I don't know the NFL the order, but it says it's from the 49ers to the Dolphins. I don't know if that's him making a mock trade or if that's a trade or what it is. It says new quarterback Derek Carr needs more weapons. The Saints defense can use help too, but Flowers can help in the slot and in the vertical passing game. I mean, all these options so far are home runs, right? For Zay, like if you're just thinking of where Zay could be like successful, yeah, getting him with Derek Carr would be good. Getting him in on turf indoors all the time would also be really good, because that really explodes the effectiveness of some of these wide receivers. So that's another one, another different choice. So as you're seeing right now, all these mock drafts, and I didn't just pick and choose. I picked out like 9 right away, and if they doubled up, that was okay. CBS had a pick. This is the earliest I think I've seen him, and it's after the trade of what happened on Tuesday, where Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets. They have Zay Flowers going at pick number 13 to the Green Bay Packers. Of any pick so far that I don't like, this would be it, because Jordan Love is not a established wide receiver quarterback yet. I want Zay at a team that is established that can get on the ball, like the Chiefs, right? He's going to go in there, he'll be effective immediately. I don't want him going to a team that has no quarterback and then they can't throw the football because there's other issues. So for me, I don't like this. Though the fact that it would be Zay and AJ Dillon, that on the other hand, if you're a BC fan, that's a pairing of two of the best players and two of the most likable players BC's had in the last 10 years. So in that sense, if you're just from a BC, like I'm a rooting fan, that right there. And Isaiah McDuffie's there too. So you've got a lot of BC roots there in Green Bay. One of the names that also comes up is Chris Sims, who I know a lot of writers don't particularly care for. I know Mitch is not the biggest fan of. Has him going to the Chargers, which again, good fit. Justin Herbert, a good throwing quarterback, puts him with Zion Johnson. The Los Angeles Chargers, go with 2 BC players in back-to-back years in the first round. That'd be pretty crazy. So that's my last mock. Where do you think? I didn't see him with the Patriots. I was surprised I didn't see him listed with the Cowboys or the Giants. I thought those would be teams, or even the Seahawks. Those were some teams that were really into him at points, but they weren't listed on any of these mock drafts. So interesting thoughts. My personal opinion, I'll give it on Thursday. I'm going to make you hold out. But I thought there was some really a wide variety. And these were, again, I didn't cut out that were draft mocks that were double. These were literally the first 7 I looked at. I looked for the high profile sites, and they all had different things. So it kind of leaves you where Zay is going to be. It's who the heck knows? Now, in our second segment, we're going to go back to the BC football team and look at the breaking news that came out on Monday about a new transfer. And I'll tell you a little bit about him and what he could bring to the Eagles. We'll get into that in just a moment. Now, folks, if you know the site, you know that we're all about FanDuel. With grand slams, no hitters, and double plays that are back, and there's no better place to get in on the Major League Baseball action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Place your first bet and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. Yesterday's show, I was saying I loved Rafael Devers, and I was saying you could pick a home run. If you did that when I said to do it, if you listened to AJ, you would have won because he hit a home run that I think is still in orbit over Baltimore. But don't listen to me for gambling advice. I'm telling you, do not, because I'm hit or miss. I could get my stuff here and there, but I'm not. I would feel guilty if you lost on one of my bets. But don't miss your chance to get a no sweat first bet of up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, the official betting partner, sports official partner of Major League Baseball. Now, folks, I'm gonna tell you, Locked On's NFL mock draft special is here and is bigger than ever. Follow along as all 32 teams' first picks in a 6-episode ultimate mock draft experience only on Locked On, that Locked On can deliver. All episodes are now available on the Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, folks, we are heading into the NFL, out of the NFL draft and into. Sorry about that. We're getting into the NFL draft and going to the opening sound. No, I'm just kidding. But I wanted to get into BC football, who made a new, they landed a new transfer on Monday. Defensive tackle Caleb Jones out of NC A&T committed to BC on his social media page. Now, Caleb was on campus this last week. You can see the picture. He's standing in the end zone right there with his pinky near his mouth. I know that's a sign for something. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what I'm showing right now. He's a 6'1" nose tackle. He played last year for NC A&T, which is a HBCU, part of the Big South Conference. He's kind of under the radar, right? He played in 11 games for the Aggies with 2.5 sacks, 9 solo tackles, and 16 total tackles. He considered Morgan State Army and Georgetown before signing with the Aggies. But what's interesting about him, he won back-to-back Virginia State titles in Conference 6A and was named the 6A Defensive Player of the Year in his final high school season with 88 tackles, 47 tackles for loss, and 13 sacks. Now, NC A&T, which is interesting. This is the second guy BC has landed from NC A&T this year. But Bialsal Tootin, who ended up flipping to Virginia Tech at the last moment, was also from NC A&T. So clearly the staff likes the film for some of these kids that are out there. But why is BC going? Why did they get Caleb Jones? It's a smaller school. I think BC's looking at depth right now. They're looking at make sure that they have depth at every key position so that they can weather injuries and have guys that can go out there and it won't be a catastrophic walk off a ledge if a guy goes down. Jones is good. I know the staff feels very highly about him. And I think they're excited to have him on campus. He's there and I'm sure he's going to battle to start. But more than anything, he's an insurance policy. If you watch that spring game, from a couple weeks ago, there were players that weren't playing, and a lot of them were on the defensive line. You were missing Nigel Tate, he's been injured, I feel, for 3 years straight. I don't know. Hopefully he's okay. But he missed all last year. He was out of uniform again. He was out. Owen Stodmeyer was out. I saw Ty Clemens on crutches. I'm sure I'm missing another defensive tackle, but there was a lot of guys out. And I don't know what the extent of the injury because that medical stuff is usually pretty private at the college level, and unless the coaches talk about it, you're gonna get their day to day a lot. And that's not just this staff; it's a lot of sports. You get that, right? So you bring in Jones, you have another guy that's played that they think obviously if they thought the film was good enough to bring him in. You have him as depth. And as we saw last year with Halfley too, he likes to cycle guys in and out. So you have another guy that you can plug in. You find out what his strong suit is, whether it's against the run or pass. Given his size, I'm guessing it would be proper those first 3 downs, but we'll have to wait and see. But That's where he's at. I think this is a fine get. This is not a huge game changer for BC, but it's a solid pickup. I don't think there's anything wrong with this, and it just continues to add depth. I think that's what we saw the last couple of years that BC lacked is established depth at a lot of different positions. That hopefully through the transfer portal, we're seeing guys like, especially in that secondary, the offensive line, they're bringing in guys that have played, and they think they need that. So I think this is a good one. Now, in terms of other football news, I saw a couple things that I thought were worth sharing. Steve Lubisher, who was we talked about, I think we talked about a couple weeks ago, a safety for BC. He was a backup, one of the backup safeties last year. He entered the transfer portal and he ended up at Bowling Green. So he's playing with Scott Loeffler, former Boston College offensive coordinator. I mean, I don't know how many BC players have transferred to Bowling Green. CJ Lewis did last year. Matt McDonald was their quarterback for a couple years. It's a good spot. Nothing wrong with that. Hopefully Lubisher, well, he was a backup safety last year. Hopefully he will find some playing time. I think that's a good spot for him. And I think that's it for football news. I think that was it for where things are at. No transfers out. If you just a total side note, I don't know if anyone's been watching. BC folks completely freak out a lot about guys entering the transfer portals. Anyone checked out what's going on? My gosh, I think they've had 17 players enter the transfer portal since the end of the spring game a week ago. That's insane. This team, good luck with. I'm sure Dion's going to bring in guys, but can you plug together a team with just transfer portal? Like literally, his whole team is going to be transfer portal guys that have never played before. It's going to be an interesting experiment. It might work. Who knows? It could also be a complete disaster. But I was just thinking about that. I was watching along on my phone. I have 247's transfer portal Twitter account. I have it on alert, so it tells me when a player enters. So any player, I just know about it, right? I was just watching. I was like, Colorado, and it's like, man, they're having some issues out there. But I guess that's what happens when he just basically told the roster that, I'm bringing my own guys. Just you can enter the portal. So he's reaping what he sowed. Now, in our final segment, let's talk a little baseball again. 2 days in a row, and I got some good news as BC has their ranking, and we'll get into that and a little bit of scheduling changes that you're going to want to know about. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. This is Locked On BC, AJ Black. Again, we hit 1,000 subscribers over the weekend. And I want to thank each and every one of you. If you missed our last episode, I thanked you, but I want to thank you all again. I can't believe that we're a Boston College podcast that has 1,000 subscribers. Okay. I think the main BC account only has 5. And we're podcasting. We're right up there, right? And it's because of you that I do this. And I want to thank each and every one of you. If you like this podcast, hit subscribe if you haven't done it already, or hit the like button. And for every everydayer out there, you are the folks that listen every single day. Whether it's the middle of the summer, middle of the football season, you're an everydayer. You're a Locked On. Thank you too. Okay. Or if you become more everydayers, because I like to shout you out. And if you are, and then you want to get shouted out, you can go into the chat box right now. If I haven't shouted you out, I will at the end of the episode. Now, BC baseball, as we said on yesterday's show, go back and check it out if you haven't checked it out. Historic weekend. They go into Chapel Hill. They beat a team 3 straight times that they have not won against on the road. It was incredible, right? We talked all about that. After getting swept by Louisville, getting mercy ruled by UConn, that was hard to swallow, right? They go ahead and they win 3 straight against number 16. And the pollsters, they listened. They were watching. BC is now up to number 11 in the country. Again, second highest ranking I think they've had. I think they were up to 7 at one point. Everything is clicking back into place, right? No team other than those juggernauts in the SEC and football and sometimes some basketball teams are going to be perfect, but baseball especially, you don't get teams that are just going to go and be a complete horse through the whole season. Most teams, unless they're completely elite, are going to have maybe a lull. I go back to the 2004 Red Sox. I was watching that team. They went through a really bad slump in July. And then they figured it out, put it all together after that trade deadline that sent Nomar out, and brought in Orlando Cabrera and Dave Roberts and I forget who the third guy they traded for, but they brought in more guys. BC is in this moment where they just rode a wave where they struggled and they still came out on top. Now, I was hoping to continue on their momentum, that this week they'd get 2 midweek games that they could easily win to pad in some more wins before they head home for a big series against Clemson that they need to really win. Unfortunately, Tuesday's game against URI has been postponed. Now, I don't know what I'm missing because I was looking on my weather app and I saw nothing, and I'm looking at it right now. So it's not that I'm crazy. I just looked in at a random Rhode Island town, and for Tuesday it says partly sunny all day. So I don't know what's going on with Rhode Island. I don't know if they got, if there's like an illness or something happened, but the game has been postponed, and it sucks because you want BC just to continue to pile up these wins. So you're gonna have to wait till Wednesday. So it's gonna be one day off. And then they'll go back to Wednesday where they play UMass Lowell. That should be a good win. And then this weekend you get Clemson at home. And again, as I said, hopefully this will be a very crowded game. And I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there on Sunday. Hopefully the weather is going to be good then too. It's looking like rain. So, hopefully maybe things will go back to being a little bit nicer, but I hope BC continues to, play very well. They are doing, I'm pulling up as we speak. Let's see. I wanted to find what the projections are. Okay. So I went to go look at the postseason projection because that's the other thing I wanted to bring up. And BC is hosting again, according to this. They're a 1 seed. And if they were to host, they would host against Central Connecticut, UConn again, and Northeastern. That would be a hell of a bracket. Northeastern is like 31-4 or something like right now. UConn blew out BC, and Central Connecticut is Central Connecticut. So that's where the projections are right now for baseball. Now, thank you all so much. Again, later this week, we'll have Mitch on. We're going to go live after Zay gets drafted. So, I mean, literally, like, once his name is announced, I'm going to probably have to write something really quick, but I'm going to jump right on this podcast and talk about that pick. And Mitch will be with me to talk about what that means for that team and how Zay will fit in. So, hopefully you'll enjoy that. Thank you. Thank you all. Marty Party had one last thought, and I want to get to it. And I think he said, really like that Half had an epiphany and is now embracing the portal. Yeah. I mean, that's, I think 9. So Caleb Jones is now 9 players they've entered, landed in the portal. I think they landed 3 last year, if I remember correctly. So yeah. And they're not done. I'm telling you folks, there's a couple guys out there. If you're on 247 and you're an insider, you know exactly who I'm talking about. There's at least one coming on campus next weekend. And there's one more that I can't talk about. So hopefully we'll hear more about that one later. I'm sorry, can't do it. But if you're an insider at Eagle Insider, you can get all that info. Sign up now. I've been scooping everything on there. So go over to Eagle Insider, sign up for a cup of coffee a day. I mean, not a day, cup of coffee a month. This is AJ Black. I am heading out. Thank you all again who have made us your everyday listen, your one of our 1000s out there. I want to thank each and every one of you. We'll be back again tomorrow, hopefully with some more news, some more insight, everything you enjoy about Locked On BC. We'll be back again with that. This is AJ Black.